morning, everyone. Lots going on. And have you guys been paying attention to Twitter with regards to Bill Gates, or Twitter or any online property? Nobody likes Bill Gates right now. Nobody trusts Bill Gates. It's really interesting to watch. Moving into our headline stories today, CTV News is reporting, this is from the 15th. Yesterday was the 15th. Today is the 16th of April. Time for pointing fingers will come later, Trudeau says, as Trump calls out WHO. Now, okay, I was going to wait for this, but I have to introduce this now. Remember Phoenix Pay? Remember our major government systems rely on this one central pay system, and it doesn't work, and it hasn't worked since Justin Trudeau took office in 2015. And he said, my top priority, I'm going to look at this personally. And it still doesn't work, which is hilarious. But senior bureaucrats in charge of Phoenix Pay System weren't fired. Here it is. In a scathing report last month, Auditor General Michael Ferguson blamed 3 executive senior public servants at PSPC, which is responsible for Phoenix, for the pay system's incomprehensible failure. He said the 3 executives did not tell the then deputy minister about the known problems with Phoenix, leading the department to launch the pay system despite clear warnings it was not ready. Speaking to a parliamentary committee on Thursday, Ms. LeMay said the individuals did not act with ill intent, noting that the development and implementation of the Phoenix project were flawed. She encouraged critics to look at the bigger picture, to learn from all of Phoenix's failures, pointing to 2 or 3 people and thinking that they're responsible for making this entire system fail. And what we're living today is very simplistic. If we focus on that, we're going to miss all the other really important lessons, Ms. LeMay told the Globe and Mail after the committee meeting. Okay, so this was reported in 2018, June 14th, 2018. I wonder, is Phoenix Pay even fixed now? I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but I think that it's funny that nobody wants to hold anybody accountable on account of what lessons could we potentially learn if we focus on holding people accountable instead of what they did wrong and then making sure they never do that again. Okay, fine, fair enough. But if you release virus like this into the public, maybe you should be held accountable. If you tell the public repeatedly and over again that China's doing a great job and that no reason for public concern and there's a low risk to Canadians and to Americans and to the West, et cetera, and then all of a sudden the West is shut down due to the virus, maybe the lesson has been learned and we should start holding people accountable. Maybe the lesson is if you don't hold people accountable, they will act carelessly, right? Maybe that's the lesson. Here's what's going on with COVID-19. Now is not the time to point fingers or assign blame for COVID-19, Canada's federal government said Wednesday. No! Why hold people accountable? We can't do that. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People are out of work, We can't hold people accountable now. Stay in your homes. Wash your hands. Propaganda-y. I don't know. Back to this. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau refused to be drawn into the Trump administration's latest political offensive. They frame it that like this is just Trump. It's not just Trump. Our politicians, the leader of the Conservatives, Andrew Scheer, gets in on this too. But the positioning of this article is all about Trump. It's all about Trump. Like, I can't read most of this article because it's all about Trump. It has nothing to do with the failures of our government. It has nothing to do with the fact that we would like people to be held accountable. It has nothing to do with the fact that Theresa Tam is sitting as an advisor to the WHO. And she's also on the public health officer for Canada. And that's a conflict of interest, like a clear conflict of interest. And it's not appropriate. Ezra Levent points to this. He says, do you know that Theresa Tam, Trudeau's virus Sarina, who said masks don't work, borders don't work. Do you like the border in your house, by the way? That travel restriction seems to be enthusiastically embraced by Theresa Tam, and Justin Trudeau and the rest. It seems very interesting. You need to be in your house. That travel restriction works with not sharing the virus, moving the virus, having the virus move through the public. But having people land from China, that's racist. Don't you dare talk about China like that, says Tam, right? Isn't that weird? And if you're worried you're an anti-Chinese racist, currently sits on the World Health Organization's Oversight Committee. Whose side is she on? So here's the source, the World Health Organization, Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the WHO. And there she is, Dr. Theresa Tam, right? You can click on that. I clicked on it to make sure it was the same person. It appears to be the same person, right? And so isn't it weird? We can't possibly hold people accountable. We have to take the WHO at its word and meet Dr. Theresa Tam, who also advises the WHO. Can it be this blatantly corrupt and still nobody cares? It appears to be that nobody cares, really. I mean, we care, but there's a lot of people who don't care. Anyway, back to this. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau refused to be drawn into the Trump administration's latest political offensive, insisting his Liberal government would concentrate for the time being on helping Canadians avoid getting sick. But don't wear a mask. Okay, wear a mask. Don't you dare talk to your neighbor. Okay, talk to your neighbor. We're going to get to that too. That is our focus right now. What can we do now? What do we need to do in the coming weeks? How do we lean on experts in international institutions and in partner countries around the world for making recommendations alongside our domestic experts on what we need to do now? Maybe ask Taiwan. You could call the president of Taiwan. They've got low cases and low deaths. We could learn from their example. In Taiwan, which is not a part of China, Taiwan, who has a president who independently runs the country. Taiwan. That one? Yeah. Okay. Back to this. There will be plenty of time as we move forward to reflect on challenges that were faced in the past. We need to learn and move forward as quickly as we can. Move forward. Let's not hold people accountable. Back to this. Conservative leader says, but the president is not alone in calling out the agency. Conservative leader, back to Canadian politics. Thanks, CTV. Andrew Scheer wants Trudeau to explain why Canada has been so dependent on an organization so closely aligned with China. Quote, we've got serious concerns about the accuracy of the information coming out of the WHO, Scheer said. It is incumbent upon this government to explain why they've based so many of their decisions on the WHO. The Associated Press reported Wednesday that 6 days passed between when Chinese officials knew about the real dangers of the virus and when the public was warned. Time that they likely allowed the outbreak to blossom into a full-blown global public health disaster. While they continued to say that there was no risk to Canadians, the risk remained low. Don't worry, go to work, go to school. Don't worry, we're going to land flights from China. We're going to continue to land flights from China. We're continuing to land flights from China to this day. Now. Today. You understand this, right? Wonder why. And I wonder why the newspaper headlines Donald Trump over our official opposition. Isn't that weird? It doesn't make the connection. I wonder why Andrew Scheer doesn't make the connection that Theresa Tam potentially has a conflict of interest, right? I don't know. This stuff is available to people, right? There's research people whose job it is to tell the leaders in the political parties stuff like this, right? Do they watch my show? They watch my show. Anyway, it's annoying. Federal government open to new law to fight pandemic misinformation. So this is the next major story for today. I thought this was really funny because, well, here we go. Most recently, said Collins, the misinformation has shifted to conspiracy theories about what triggered the pandemic. Claims that it was cooked up in a lab, for example. A conspiracy theory claiming the disease is caused by 5G wireless signals prompted attacks on wireless towers in the UK. Okay, so we're going to focus on the crazy conspiracy theory that CNN is currently reporting. US explores possibility that coronavirus started in Chinese lab, not a market. So the federal ministers are looking at laws to prevent people, or people like me, I suppose, independent journalists, from discussing COVID-19 misinformation, what they deem as misinformation. But what they deem as misinformation is news, according to CNN. That's an American outlet. It's also news according to the National Post. National Post is reporting it's possible a Wuhan disease lab is the focus of suspicion and conspiracy theories about COVID-19. And so both of these, the CNN article and the National Post article, back off and give credence to the idea that it's still just a conspiracy theory. This one, the CNN one, claims hundreds of thousands of deaths, but there's only been 138,000 deaths according to the Johns Hopkins numbers. So I think that that's really interesting that CNN is just blatantly inflating the numbers of deaths. Here it is. The theory is one of multiple being pushed or pursued by investigators as they attempt to determine the origin of the coronavirus that has resulted in a pandemic and killed hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands? It hasn't killed hundreds of thousands. It just hasn't. So, but they're talking about an intelligence official familiar with the government analysis said a theory U.S. intelligence officials are investigating is that the virus originated in a laboratory in Wuhan, China, and was accidentally released to the public. Other sources told CNN that U.S. intelligence hasn't been able to corroborate the theory, but is trying to discern whether someone was infected in the lab through an accident or poor handling of materials and may have infected others. U.S. intelligence is reviewing sensitive intelligence collection aimed at the Chinese government, according to the intelligence source, as they pursue the theory. But some intelligence officials say it's possible the actual cause may never be known. Oh, we just don't know what happened. We just don't know. It's an incredible coincidence. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. Not even 150. Here's the Canadian article from April 16th. That's today. It's possible the Wuhan disease lab is the focus of suspicion and conspiracy theories about COVID-19's origins. The basic facts are admittedly ripe for conspiracy theory. China's only high-security infectious disease laboratory is located in Wuhan, the city where the coronavirus behind the COVID-19 pandemic first emerged, and the lab is famous for its sometimes controversial research on just such pathogens. Most of the online speculation evoking chilling scenarios of biological weapons and the like lacks credible evidence. Some have been directly refuted by science. Very sciencey science, right? The same science that tells us borders don't work and masks don't work. And go to work and pay your taxes, right? Sciencey science. Government of Canada science. Back to the article. But a new report suggests U.S. diplomats voiced serious concern about safety in the lab in 2018 has added circumstantial backing to a plausible, if unproven, theory that the virus had natural origins but leaked accidentally from the Wuhan Institute of Virology lab. This is taking steps towards what probably happened, but not at all admitting it. Okay, this is hedging their bets a lot, just in case the federal ministers come down with that law, right? They can say, "Oh, it was just a conspiracy theory. We weren't spreading false information." Please, comrade, I don't need to go to the gulag. Back to this. It's still much more likely the germ emerged naturally from the environment, said Dr. David Kelvin, a Dalhousie University virologist who works with researchers elsewhere in China. But it's possible it could happen, he said, of a laboratory leak. There is precedent for such escapes, usually via inadvertent infected lab workers, both in China and elsewhere. They include, I wanted to list this because it's kind of funny. They include a 1977 flu pandemic traced to a lab mishap in China or Russia, 3 or 4 accidental releases of SARS virus from a Beijing lab in 2004. 3 or 4? Whoops. I mean, 1 or 2. Shame on me. 3 or 4. Shame on the rest of the world? What is going on? In 2004, and then repeated unintentional escape of smallpox from a British facility in the 1960s and 70s. I couldn't find a link for that one. A number of American virus labs, meanwhile, have been shut down in recent years because of dangerously sloppy procedures. I wanted to show you the dangerously sloppy procedures because I think that you can't compare COVID-19, which has killed 138,000 people, to these 2 incidents here. In one episode last month, reports the New York Times, at least 62 CDC employees may have been exposed to live anthrax bacteria after potentially infectious samples were sent to laboratories unequipped to handle them. Employees not wearing protective gear worked with bacteria that were supposed to have been killed but may not have been. All were offered a vaccine and antibiotics, and the agency said it believed no one was in danger. In a second accident disclosed Friday, a CDC lab accidentally contaminated a relatively benign flu sample with a dangerous H5N1 bird flu strain that has killed 386 people since 2003. Fortunately, a United States Agricultural Department laboratory realized the strain was more dangerous than expected and alerted the CDC. I wonder how they realized that. But here is Fox News, and they say sources believe coronavirus outbreak originated in Wuhan lab as part of China's effort to compete with the United States. And, well, here it is. There's increasing confidence that the COVID-19 outbreak likely originated in a Wuhan laboratory, though not as a bioweapon, but as part of China's attempt to demonstrate that its efforts to identify and combat viruses are equal to or greater than the capabilities of the United States. Multiple sources who have been briefed on the details of early actions by China's government and seen relevant materials tell Fox News. This may be the costliest government cover-up of all time, said one of the sources. The sources believe the initial transmission of the virus, a naturally occurring strain that was being studied there, was bat to human, and that patient 0 worked at the laboratory. Sorry, my mouse is jumpy. Then went into the population in Wuhan. The increasing confidence comes from classified and open source documents and evidence, the source said. Fox News has requested to see the evidence directly. Sources emphasized, as is often the case with intelligence, that it's not definitive and should not be characterized as such. Some inside the administration and the intelligence and epidemiological communities are more skeptical, and the investigation is continuing. What all of the sources agree about is the extensive cover-up of data and information about COVID-19 orchestrated by the Chinese government. Asked by Fox News' John Roberts about the reporting, President Trump remarked at Wednesday's coronavirus briefing, quote, "More and more we're hearing the story. We're doing a very thorough examination of this horrible situation. Documents detailed early efforts by doctors at the lab and early efforts at containment. The Wuhan wet market, initially identified as possible point of origin, never sold bats, and the sources tell Fox News that blaming the wet market was an effort by China to deflect blame from the laboratory, along with the country's propaganda efforts targeting the U.S. and Italy. U.S. Embassy's officials warned in January 2018 about inadequate safety at the Wuhan Institute of Virology lab and passed on information about scientists conducting risky research on coronavirus from bats, the Washington Post reported Tuesday. Right? Interesting stuff. So there's lots of evidence to push this conspiracy theory. However, don't you dare talk about it, right? Government's looking at legislation. They're going to hammer you or me, right? And I'm going to talk about printed news. I'm going to talk about printed news around the world. And if I run afoul of this new law, it'll be very interesting to see what happens, because propaganda writ large and trying to silence people like me, I mean, I'm doing this for fun. At this point in time, I enjoy this. So criminalizing this behavior is just an incredible turn, something I didn't expect to see in my lifetime. I expected to see continued freedom of speech, continued robust conversation, and continued struggling towards a more perfect existence, right? Instead, we're seeing mudslinging and racism, and, well, I mean, I guess it's human, isn't it? Back to this. Biowarfare experts question why Canada was sending lethal viruses to China. Yeah, this is August 8th, 2019, right? Why are we sending lethal viruses to China? It doesn't make any sense. Put to the proof new rules for returning travelers to Canada. They tell me they aren't being asked to prove their plans by Canada border agents despite government policy changes. My abbreviated TV report. So this is Sean O'Shea, and he is a global news anchor or investigative journalist. And he is talking about the new laws put in place. You have to have a plan if you want to come to Canada from anywhere, and you have to isolate for 14 days. A more elegant solution would be to shut down travel into Canada for 14 days. However, Justin Trudeau knows better, and he wants people, arriving on vacation from parts of the world that aren't under complete lockdown to be able to get to Canada. And if you can't afford a hotel room, they'll get one for you. But apparently, that's not happening. Apparently, the new rules they aren't being asked to prove their plans. They're just being waved on to come on in. Come on in. Yeah, welcome to Canada. Welcome to Canada. Don't talk to me. You might have a virus. Welcome to Canada. Here's the last story for this morning. 17 minutes. Goodness. Okay. Yes, you can chat with your neighbors at a distance during COVID-19 pandemic. Yesterday, I reported that Ottawa was telling you, don't chat with your neighbor. It might become a house party, might become a driveway party. You might be talking to people and they might have the virus, and 25%, 23% are asymptomatic, and blah, 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 blah. Scare, scare, scare. And now they're coming about and changing the rules. And Justin Trudeau didn't even obey the rules or the laws, decided to cross provincial borders and go visit his family in Quebec when he works in Ontario. Weird, right? Like, it's just weird to see a prime minister float the laws. It's weird to see daily updates about what we're allowed and what we're not allowed to do. It's weird to see an update that says you're not allowed to talk to your neighbors. And it's equally weird to see one that says, yeah, go ahead and talk to your neighbors. This is Canada, or it was Canada. It used to be free. It used to be you got to assess your own risk. It used to be you could stand outside or play in a park without the government pushing and encroaching and saying, no, you can't do that. And maybe they have good reason for it. Maybe they do. But is this the way we need to solve problems, with authoritarian and draconian measures? I don't know, and I'm not comfortable where we're going. The slope is too slippery. We're sliding too fast, and nobody seems to care. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do from here. I don't know where it's going, but it's certainly, we're on a trajectory, and without some Herculean movement, without some effort on the part of the population, we're going to keep sliding in that direction, right? An object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by another force. And so, continued slide, continued decay, continued encroachment on freedoms, continued restriction of movement, continued flouting of the rules by our government. This is all expected. The only thing that's left up to the question is whether we're going to be able to say stop, whether we're going to be able to open our economy again when it makes sense to open it. I don't know. All of the power is currently consolidated. We're locked in our houses. And no there doesn't appear to be a quick path out of this. We're going to be waiting a couple of weeks at least. And even then, who knows? So I'm hopeful that this all happens the way it should happen. Things open up again and we get our economy back to running and people go back to work and life goes on, right? With some lessons learned and maybe manufacturing returned to Canada, at least the really important stuff. But I fear that the same paralysis is going to continue. I fear people are going to embrace the return to normalcy and say, why can't we just do everything the way we always did? I think that's where we're going. And I think that these powers that they're enacting will not be easy to overturn, right? What's misinformation? What's misinformation? Who's correct with their information? CNN? John Hopkins? National Post? Fox News? Right? Depends. If you share this link, you'll get laughed at. If you share this link, you'll get the parts of the article that say it's not nearly as bad or it's a conspiracy theory. If you share this link, the same thing will happen. So truth is in the eye of the beholder. We're past that now. It's so weird. So weird. Thanks for watching, everybody. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to keep doing this, though. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful